Now we are live. And 3, 2, 1. All right. Welcome on back to another edition of the Baltimore Beatdown podcast. It is Tuesday, June 2nd. My name is Jake Luke. I'm joined by my two good friends, Vasily Larikos and Spencer Schultz. Coming to you guys in a little bit of a weird time here. Even since we last recorded, things have gotten very, very strange. Things have escalated very quickly in the country. Weird time to be alive. We were already in the middle of a pandemic, and now we have all this stuff escalating around the country after the murder of George Floyd. Obviously, it's a very sensitive subject, something that we've kind of all been dealing with in our own ways on social media, off of it. And yeah, it's just a very tough, touchy subject. I don't know if you guys really have any like opening thoughts that you want to bring or anything like that. Or
I think that the three of us definitely are in recognition that, I got a little feely on Twitter, but much of my life has been shaped by Black culture, which I consider American culture. Many people that I respect, idolize, and gives me goosebumps are Black and are upset, and I'm here for them. I support them. And, I have the one thing that I've learned is that I'm a white man and they want white men specifically to speak up. So I'm here to speak up and say that I support them. I don't know their struggle. I didn't live that. I went to public school in Carroll County, Maryland. I never had a Black teacher. I never had a non-white teacher in my 12 years of grade school, but I'm here for them. I support them. And I believe that, many of our listeners and many of my own personal friends are greatly influenced by amazingly accomplished, smart, athletic, fun, bright Black men, Black women, and not just Black men or women, all different races, all different sizes, all different colors. And I know that when I was growing up, I learned in school when I was a little boy that this country was founded as a melting pot. I am of Jewish descent. Vasilis, I know that you are of Greek descent. Jake, I know that you are kind of like I am, but of Irish descent, among many other things. Cajun, Raging Cajun as well. And I thought when I was little that this was a country that, in a society that loved Greek food and Italian food and movies that star Black men and movies that star women, Asian women and whatever. And whoever you were, if you're a fun person, if you're a nice person, if you're a good person, you'll be treated as such. And if you're an asshole, you will also be treated as such. And that is a world that I want to live in, that I thought I lived in. And I now recognize that, there's a struggle every single day for a lot of people. And it's not just, Black men and women, but right now they're hurting really badly. So right now it is about Black men and women, and I support them and I'm here for them. And anyone who has anything to reach out to talk about, is upset about, I have your back. If I have ears for you, I have a shoulder for you. And I know that Jake and Vasilis both feel the same way.
Absolutely. Well said, Spencer. The bottom line, the police should not be murdering people. I think everybody agrees with that. And, I can't speak directly to it, obviously. I'm not qualified, but I hope that the movement that's going on leads to positive change going forward, because, something's got to change. I think everyone agrees with that.
yeah, that's really well said by both of you guys. I think the thing that you can do if you're in a position like us, just regular average middle-class white dudes who just grew up not really understanding all this stuff, what you can do is just seek to understand. If you have friends that are angry, anxious, frustrated, whatever it is, just seek to understand and listen. And I think that's going to be the first step towards cultivating a new generation where that's the system. Racism is not the system. The things that we grew up with to a certain extent are no longer the system. We're here for you. We hear you. And, we're in support of, everything that you're trying to accomplish, everything that you're trying to change and to make this world a better place. We feel for you. And we'll do what we can to try and come to an understanding.
Absolutely. Yeah. We appreciate everyone that, has spoken up and spoken out, and we want to portray love, positivity, and we've got ears to listen. So we're here first and foremost.
For sure. And wanted to say something on that. We have a platform. We didn't want to just be completely silent. So we've said it. It's out of the way. You guys can, like Spencer said, hit us up on social media if you want to, talk, vent, get anything out. I know we have a lot of Black people that listen to the show that, are amongst the audience that I consider, personal friends of mine. If you listen to the show, you're a friend of mine. So, like I said, we're in complete support. And I guess moving on from that, kind of a tough segue, but time to talk a little bit of football. You guys ready?
Yeah, good choice again, Jake.
Definitely. So we're doing another back in the day. We did one a couple weeks ago to what I would say rave reviews. Many people said rave reviews. I mean, listen to me. I'm just completely going off track here. I don't know what's
our
going
Raven reviews get rave reviews.
Raven reviews. Listen, that's why I have you on the show. You always are able to bring it together. But tremendous reviews from the people that listened into the last Back in the Day podcast that we did of the 2003 wildcard game, Titans at Ravens. A lot of people reached out, very thankful for us going back and letting them experience a little bit of nostalgia for a game that was 17 years ago at this point. Kind of hard to believe, 2003, 17 years ago. Went a little bit more recent this time, 2011, week 9. And this is a really fun one. A lot of people are going to hold this game very closely in their hearts. I know I do. I know you guys both do for, I think, different reasons, but we'll get into that certainly at, the proper point. But like I said, 2011, week 9, Ravens at Steelers in primetime, Sunday Night Football. Alan, Chris on the call. What is your guys' opening thoughts?
6-3 and 6-3, and the Bengals were 6-2 at the
I think the Ravens were 5-2 and the Steelers 6-2.
Yes, correct. That is correct.
6-2 as well, and leading the division surprisingly with the young Andy Dalton and the young Adriel Jeremiah Green leading up their offense. So very competitive division this year, a lot of fun, and just a ton of very good teams duking it out in the AFC North, which is the way I think it should always be.
So to light the candle and set the aesthetic, the AFC North is in those heydays of the Bengals, the Steelers, the Ravens, and I believe Al Michaels actually said early in the broadcast that the Browns also. So these 4 teams, the classic AFC North, comprised 4 of the top 5 defenses in terms of yards and points headed into week 9 of the 2000 and what are we at? Is this 2000? This is 2010. This is 2011 season. So at that point, that team, these 2 teams were 2 top 5 defenses. This was the good old days of AFC North football. The freaking nose guards, the goddamn huge middle linebackers, the big backs, it's 2nd and 10. We're going to bust it down your throat for 1 yard and it's going to be 3rd and 9. And then we're going to throw a freaking pick because we are grown men. It was that AFC North.
This was the apex of the Ravens-Steelers rivalry, this game in particular. And to rewind, in week 1 of this same season, 2011, the Ravens put it on the Steelers 35-7, forced Big Ben into 5 turnovers, 7 turnovers in total. That game also featured a nice little brawl between Ray Rice and Troy Polamalu. A couple other guys jumped in there. It was great, and it was defensive football, as you said. The Steelers finished the season number 1 in pass D and number 8 in run D. The Ravens finished the season number 4 in pass D, number 2 in run D.
Spencer, we talked about where you were with this game a couple weeks ago. We'll bring it up again, obviously. Voss, where were you in November of 2011?
November 2011, I owned a restaurant in Severna Park, and I went to this game with my father, I believe. Used to have off on Sundays. Or not this game, week 1, I should say. But, those were good times for sure.
Nice. And a quick recap from the good Dr. Schultz on his experience with this one. It's very unique.
I got to watch the game. I was at a house. I was going to Towson. I was at a house that was used. It was the biggest house in my fraternity. About 8 guys live there. And we have been dispelled from campus now, so I'm comfortable to say these things. We used to be very tight-lipped about it, but I was pledging a fraternity at Towson, and I was upstairs with we used to call it a hegemon, which was a Latin word. It means pledge dad, pledge father, pledge daddy, whatever the hell other people call it. Some weird stuff sometimes. Pledge daddy doesn't sit right with me, but that's what he was. Huge Ravens fan. We are upstairs every Sunday night. We had pledge meeting at 9 p.m. This was a Sunday night football game. I usually went to the game, so I would go to the games, have a good time, and get my ass kicked later at night. Not literally, but have to do a lot of workouts, eat a lot of nasty shit upstairs watching the game. And I'm with, 3 or 4. I swear at Towson there weren't a ton of really big Ravens fans, but I'm upstairs with a couple, 3 or 4 really good, really into it Ravens fans watching, and Ravens are winning the whole game. I'm getting ready for this event. My pledge dad's like, all right, we're we're going to watch this game. We're going to watch this game. The Steelers score a touchdown, and he's like, all right, we delayed this. Everyone's waiting downstairs. Go downstairs. And I was like, there was 2 minutes left. My jaw dropped. I was like, please. I'm not going to say his name, but I was like, please let me watch the end. Please let me watch the end. It was right before the Ravens' final drive. I go downstairs. Everyone makes me go downstairs. I was like a sad puppy. I go downstairs. We had this whole incident happen where one of our pledge brothers quit. We tried to go pick him up from his house. He didn't live at Taos. And we tried to go we're like, yeah, we'll go get him and bring him back. His mom said she would call the cops on us. So we had to go back to the brothers who are already agitated for starting late after we unsuccessfully brought him back. My pledge dad comes downstairs. He's smoking a cigarette, has an ember, freaking flicks it towards us. It doesn't hit anybody. It flicks at us. He's like, I'm already pissed off. You guys messed this up. You messed that up. And the damn Ravens just lost. So now they're in third place in the freaking AFC North. Joe Flacco's a fucking idiot. Like, blah, 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 blah. So I'm doing push-ups, doing all this bows and toes, freaking all this stuff, and getting hazed. I'm in the basement, and the whole time it was so much worse because I was like, man, the Ravens are 5-3, the Steelers are 7-2. We play so and so and so and so and so and so. They only play so and so and so and so. They're not even going to make the playoffs. The Bengals are good. This is the worst. Get out of the pledge event at like 1:30 in the morning and check my phone, and Joe Flacco threw a game-winning touchdown pass to Torrey Smith. So I was relieved.
It's just the ultimate guys being dudes story.
The ultimate frat story.
Yeah, just like, frat on, good sir. Just backwards hats and like doing push-ups and lying to each other about the results of games. I mean, that's just on a good night's work. What else do we got to hit on? Number one song on the charts. Anyone want to wager a guess? November of 2011.
I got a feeling by the Black Eyed Peas. I don't know.
That's a good guess.
That is a good guess.
But incorrect.
I have no idea.
Someone Like You by Adele. So
wow.
the nice light poppy song that era is really known for. Someone Like You by Adele.
I wouldn't have, if you asked when did Adele hit the charts first, I would have said 2014, I think.
Yeah, no, so I thought that too, but I think we're confusing it with that other Adele song that was popular around that time. I forget what it's called. But yeah,
Make the Fire Burn or whatever.
Yeah.
Who could say? But she had a good run early to mid 20-teens there. But yeah, so going into 2011, couple big additions made. They signed tackle Bryant McKinney in the preseason, who would go on to play a big role with the Ravens, but not necessarily that year. Wide receiver Lee Evans they picked up in the draft. They grabbed Jimmy Smith in the first round. Torrey Smith in the second round. He's going to play a big role here. They got Vontae Leach that year. They signed Ricky Williams, who, the all-time great quote, I got high and forgot I wasn't supposed to get high when asked about, why he kept getting suspended. Draft also notable for Pernell McPhee and Tyrod Taylor. They didn't really make huge contributions to this team. McPhee,
what a draft class. Good. McPhee had one of the best rookie seasons of any Ravens pass rusher.
Okay, so maybe I'm a little bit confusing him with somebody else there. I know he did get involved in this game. I'm sure we'll touch on that at some point. So yeah, it's November 6th, 2011, 5-2 Ravens, 6-2 Steelers. Ravens, I don't know if we had touched on this yet, but their first game of the season was a 35-7 shellacking of the Steelers,
known as the hit.
Sure.
In Ravens history. Bart Scott drilling Ben Roethlisberger, loudest I ever heard M&T Bank Stadium.
Yeah.
Well, I thought you were going to say JJ on Wolves.
I was going to say that was the
that was the one I was thinking of.
I was thinking of Bart Scott on Ben.
I think that was the war game too.
No, I think Bart Scott on Ben was 2010.
No, it was the 35-7 game. I'm positive.
Okay.
Because it was like
the crazy thing is that it's impossible to even look up. We can't even use Google or anything to check.
That's true. It is. Yeah. No Google. Not allowed.
Yeah, definitely.
JJ, I think JJ and Rob. On a side note, Rob Burnett and Achilles Smith. Look that one up too. That's up there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So they're off to a hot start, 5-2. I think they had like an understandable loss to the Titans, it looks like. And then the 12-7 loss to the Jaguars was before this one. So
I do not remember that game. I don't recall.
Is that the one where Pagano called maybe I'm mixing this up, MJD a rolling ball of butcher knives?
Yes.
That was a Monday night game. It was a Monday night trap game in Jacksonville.
Yeah, it was.
Or was that a different year?
It was. So
yes, it was Monday night. Yes.
Yep, that was the one. That was a trap game. That was terrible.
Yeah. So do you guys remember your general thoughts on like where the team was at going into this one? Anything specific, or is it kind of vague?
Joe Flacco is starting to look pretty good. He has a certain confidence consistently that he did not have his rookie season nearly as consistently, where the ball was coming out hot a lot. And he always had that, Eli Manning-esque. We always love to compare those two because how can you not? But he had that deer escaping a predator thing, and it used to result in fumbles and sacks and weird plays. But now it's starting to be him throwing off balance and throwing darts everywhere. And he's starting to look like a really good quarterback. And the defense was like still unbelievably good. This was literally the last year of this defense being really good.
Yeah, some people say now that 2011 was the best roster or depth chart the Ravens ever had. I'm not sure if I agree with that because they were a little bit weak at offensive tackle and a little bit weak at corner. I think maybe last year's team was better, but they made the playoffs 3 years in a row coming into this. They had all the pieces, right? And Flacco, as you said, was coming into his own. And Pittsburgh was the team that was in their way. They had given them 2 crushing playoff defeats in the previous years. Both of them games could have went their way, and it seemed that anytime the game was on the line, somehow, some way, Pittsburgh would get a call or make a play, and they needed to knock them off. They crushed them in week 1, and then this game, if you figure if you could do it twice in a row, then maybe you slay that dragon.
Get the monkey off their proverbial back.
Yeah, exactly. It felt like 08 and 09. Like 08, that was a really good team, but since Flacco was just so kind of green, they sort of had the feel of a really strong wild card team that was going to be ready to make the leap soon. 2009, they kind of fell ass backwards into the playoffs, won a game, but there was luck that played into that as well. 2010, they felt like another good wild card team, not quite there yet, but 2011 and specifically the first half of the season, I do remember thinking, all right, like if they don't go and win the division and at least make a deep run here, then that's probably going to be it for a while. So the fact that Flacco was looking so good, I was pretty confident, pretty pumped up. I'm usually kind of down on the team going into a spot like this, prime time in a very tough place to play. But I remember, expecting them to really duke it out and if not win, get really damn close. So this was certainly a fun one for young Jakey. But yeah, so like I mentioned, NBC Sunday Night Football, Alan Chris on the call.
This is when Chris Collinsworth still is awful. He's so good now in 2019, 2020. He was horrible during this game. I was pissed.
Me and Voss were talking about before you got on here about how people have turned the corner on Collinsworth. I've always loved him. I don't know, man. Maybe I don't pay attention to the analysis enough, but when he slides in and he's got the smile going and he's kind of hamming it up for the cameras, it feels like Sunday night, and I'm just like,
he just used to obsess.
Had left over, just like trying to wash the weekend away, and he's comforting me into a deep sleep.
Like I was obviously I love the Ravens, big surprise there, but like he would obsess over one player for like 25 consecutive minutes.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, here, this guy Torrey Smith coming here the second round out of Maryland. He's making a big, contribution into this one, but he's got
with a 3 touchdown performance in 1 quarter. But I have a Ray
Lewis talking about him being a bust, and then Ray Lewis put his hands on his shoulders and said, "Listen, you got
by the power of God."
Yeah, pretty much.
Let the power of Ray compel you. But I have a Ray Lewis tattoo on my calf. That is my favorite all-time Raven. One of my number one idol in my life. And if he talked about Ray Lewis for 20 minutes, I would hate Ray Lewis. Like whoever he talked about, if it was Aaron Rodgers, I would turn the football game off.
Tell you what, this guy's like a preacher up on a pulpit leading this defense out here. He's just getting them to do whatever they've got to do. I'll tell you what, it's pretty something to watch, Al. I'll tell you.
And Michaels is the man. Michaels held it all together, though. I love Michaels. They're
great.
best.
Yeah, Al is a G, man.
Sick intro too, Jake, with the boxers.
Yeah. What was it? The 4 quarters of fury. They had
I noted that in my notes that I wrote down. 4 quarters of fury, and it was like big steel colliding, like bah.
That would not happen today.
Tyson, they split from Ray Lewis to Tyson back to Holyfield or something.
Like guys getting cut too. Like they would not show that in 2020.
Agreed.
But yeah, I mean, it was pretty freaking awesome. I think just the absolute sweet spot for broadcasts, but who could say? So the game opens, and I believe it's a touchback, and I don't remember this happening, but Ray Rice scores on the opening play, and it's called back by the rookie there, Torrey Smith, getting a hold on.
It wasn't a hold.
No,
it wasn't a hold at all. It was on his shoulder or his chest.
Was it William Gay?
I think it was. Yeah,
he fell down. Yeah. William Gay fell down.
He pulled him down. That's a classic move.
Yeah,
you pull the guy down and make it look like he was touching his shoulder. His hand was right there.
It was textbook square block, not even like anything bad at all called back.
It was a bad, yeah, it was a very bad.
Here we go.
76 yards.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean the first play of the game. Like, can you imagine the tone that would have set?
And that ends up totaling more yards on that play than Ray Rice had the rest of the game.
Yeah,
which is kind of sick. I mean, you know, it speaks to the physicality of this rivalry. But if that play had broken open, who knows what he would have gone on to do? But I mean, so out of that drive, you get Flacco with a long completion to Pitta on the first drive, absolute beauty. And like we were talking about this a little bit on Twitter, but just great ability to throw from those awkward angles in his prime. And it's a long, you know, clock killing drive. Stalls out at the 2-yard line. That's so Ravens. So it's 3-0 Baltimore. 8 minutes.
Stalls out. It was a 4th and 1, and it was a close one.
Well,
and
like Yonda missed the pull block.
Yep.
Yeah, and it also
third down,
could have been,
which is very unusual.
Yeah, right. And it could have been a touchdown on third down if they had not ruled Rice down with the forward progress stop.
Ray Rice got fired up.
And the PI on Torrey is what got them down there. And just quick note on Torrey, and I don't remember this guy's name, but when I wasn't even a writer for Beatdown, just a commenter, a previous writer wrote an article, and Torrey had he had the most pass interferences in the league, and the second place, he had more than double the second place throughout his time.
I remember the time when Torrey Smith and just Torrey Smith had more defensive pass interference yards in a season. I don't know if it was this year or another year than the rest of the NFL, any other NFL team.
Yeah, it was insane how many he got. But anyway.
It would piss me off when like Flacco would, you know, take a lot of heat, but that was just one there where I was like, you know what? Yeah, like that's just kind of part of his game. Like, and he's good at it. Like, I'm sorry. Like
Torrey's game too. Torrey, people. It wasn't just Flacco.
Torrey also is very loose and wild as he runs. A lot of flailing
arms. Yeah, like
his arms are all wide when he catches the ball. There's a lot of pushing, a lot of shoving late. He always tries to propel himself off, and he probably was guilty of a lot of OPI that didn't get called too. But that's even better.
He actually, yeah, I do remember he had a couple of those even in the Super Bowl where they were, you know, he would kind of wave for the call and, you know, Sims would be like, yeah, that's offensive pass interference if anything. And, you know, young testosterone fueled me would scream at Phil Sims for being stupid, but that's, you know, there. So the next drive, Steelers open it up, and I just got PTSD with Roethlisberger doing that triple pump fake. And just like nobody around him. And then, you know, he's just like making these throws. But it turns out that they had a 3-and-out on that drive, right? Webb stops Mendenhall.
Huge tackle.
Yeah.
Webb was in his prime in 11, and he was one of the best corners in the game. And the following offseason, he got a $52 million contract, and he deserved that contract. He was a beast in 2011. Then he started getting hurt and all kind of, but he was awesome that year.
He was a second-year player at that point, I think. 2010 Nicholls State 5th-round pick, or 2009.
I think he was a third-round pick. And no, he had to be at least in his third year. He couldn't have got the extension.
Yeah, it was 2009 third-rounder. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about here. But yeah,
Jimmy wasn't playing back then either. It was Kerry Williams, and then the nickelback was Chris Carr, I believe.
Yeah, they signed Carr. They signed Carr back to take over for where Jimmy would have been. Maybe they wanted to give him some time, and he was probably dealing with injuries and stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the NBC talking about the broadcast I don't know if you guys noticed the DVR controller graphic. Mm-hmm. It's just maybe the most 2011 thing ever. I loved it. But yeah, so you have the next drive come up. You get a 3rd and 9, or I think it was a 2nd and 9. Torrey clearly gets held, and then they just do the same throw to Torrey, and they pick up the first. Like I don't know if you remember that, but I just remember thinking like that's kind of fun. Like this is a cool
play. Well, Torrey dropped the first one, and then Flacco went right back to him, and Torrey kind of a precursor to the fourth quarter. Right?
Yeah. I have never seen a remotely effective receiver such as Torrey Smith, and I thought he was going to suck out of college because of it. When he would catch the ball, you are taught to put your pinkies overlapping over each other so that you can brace and put as many fingers as you can. Torrey Smith would clap the ball in. Like his hands would be 2 feet apart, and he would catch the ball and clap it. And I was
a lot of this too. A lot of that.
Yes. Like gator arms, wide hands, and like late hands. And I was like, this dude is going to set the NFL drops record in the NFL with Joe Flacco throwing the ball deep. And he had, I think in this game, he had at least 2, if not 3.
He had 4 drops. I counted 4 in this game.
But yeah, for those who could not see, I was doing the please, sir, could I have some more hands? Which is kind of what I was always reminded of with him. But yeah, so you got a 3rd down throw to Dixon that goes incomplete in Steeler territory. So it brings out Cundiff. longest active streak of kicks inside 50 in a row with 32, and they bring that up approximately 7,000 times before he kicks it, so he promptly goes out and misses it. So 3-0 Ravens with
I was surprised
8 seconds left.
Surprised that Cundiff, because obviously you remember him for the playoffs that year, but that's just the magic of the Morgan Cox, Sam Cook battery there. Putting it
So
down
if I'm not mistaken, I believe 2010 he was 26 of 29, Pro Bowl kicker, sets the NFL touchbacks record. I think he had like a mini Chris Davis episode, I think, where he was like jacked, possibly a little juiced up, nailing the ball. Then comes in 2011.
Like of all the words that I've used, I've heard people use to describe Billy Cundiff, and there have been many in the past decade. Chris Davis juiced up, I cannot say has been among them.
I'm telling you, Billy Cundiff was shredded. You know me, you know I know.
Yeah. Did he have an Instagram account? It doesn't feel like the prime Instagram years.
I could have weighed him within a pound in 2010. He was at least 215 pounds. I want to say he was about 217. Billy Cundiff was jacked out of nowhere, murdering the ball out of the back of the end zone touchbacks. And in 2011, he goes 27 of 36 or 9. I want to say it was 36. So a down year for sure.
He was a good kicker.
Yeah. 12 of 14 in the postseason in his career.
Yeah, I mean, that's, his issues in the postseason, well documented. But I think, everything that went on to happen the year later when they won the
never
Super
kicked another football.
I've forgiven Billy Cundiff since. I don't know about you guys.
I've forgiven him. He never kicked another football after that.
I haven't forgiven him. You don't miss that kind of kick. Not with Sam Cook.
He was with the Browns the next year after.
Was he?
He ended up playing, but he was.
Yeah, he definitely played. The Vikings were looking for a kicker. I heard.
Well, they've had their fair share of tough kicks in big games too.
That's also true. But yeah, Cundiff was a good kicker. He was a good kicker. He was fine.
Yeah, he was good. But he just happened to get replaced by the GOAT, which is tough for him. So it's still 3-0. Steelers take over kind of near the 50, a little bit beyond it. And then Heath Miller just immediately catches a pass to convert a first down. And I did not miss hearing those stupid fucking chants.
And it was so annoying because the Ravens fans had Heath.
I think we had it first, didn't we?
Yeah,
they stole it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I mean, it's just like anytime there's that like in a name, you get it. You get that yelled out.
The white tight end, like Suggs would say, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That was
Heath Miller was better than Jason Witten in their primes. Don't at me.
First round pick. He was a good player for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Witten's definitely like, maybe this is revisionist history, but feels like a little bit of a compiler.
Miller was a good blocker. He was a better blocker than Witten for sure.
Really good blocker.
So you got him getting things going, and then a young Antonio Brown breaks it open with a 32-yard game on that same
breakout. This was his breakout year. This was his second year. He went from 167 yards as a rookie to over 1,100.
Only 2 touchdowns.
And I thought that was a busted coverage by Ed Reed. I didn't watch a coach's film, but
it might have been Pollard too.
Pollard.
He had a rough game.
Reed was going a little too crazy in this game back there.
Well, Reed was getting old. This was his second last year.
Well,
this wasn't Reed's best game for sure. But yeah, this was when AB had a game. This was a game for him. This is really when he broke out.
Yeah. So they introduced the defense. I want to bring this up. So they introduced the defense heading into the second quarter, I think on this drive. Reminded me of a random anecdote. So I saw you were talking about Corey Redding today on Twitter, Spencer. Very underrated player. Love Corey Redding. Corey Redding, a big Rubik's Cube guy. So for some reason, our math class had this whole like Rubik's Cube obsession when I was in high school. So this is right around this time. I don't know how. Well, we had a coach actually that had a kid at the school. Shout out to Wade. And I guess he got Corey Redding to come in and you had the big Rubik's Cube competition, and he participated in it. I don't think he won, but he got pretty close. I shook his hand. I was like, yeah. I tried to shake his hand with my hand. Like, it was just not even a shake. He just like clasped my hand within his and said, "Hey, how's it going, man?" Corey.
Redding was a beast. He also scored a touchdown against the Steelers in the playoffs the year before.
That
weird like whistle play.
Yeah, they did.
Redding was a player.
He is just one of those classic little 3-tech, 5-tech run stuffing like jerks. And he ends up cracking Rashard Mendenhall, throws David Johnson, the tight end, who is one of the most weird players ever, that David Johnson. Throws David Johnson off of him, smacks Rashard Mendenhall, who, as I said on Twitter, was the little bitch of the Ravens. He got cracked so many times when he played Baltimore.
What year did Ray Lewis break his shoulder? Was that his rookie year?
I think it was the year before this, because
it was his rookie season.
I think they mentioned it on the telecast.
Oh, okay.
That was not like that was one of the Ray Lewis hits where you were like, ugh.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, this same drive,
yes,
Ward with the catch in front of the sticks, Ray just comes up and smacks him, and no flag. Like, we're gonna mention this a lot when we do this.
It was helmet to helmet.
Yeah, for sure. So that's up a 4th and 1. Harbs, of course, challenges it.
Hold on, we gotta go back. We gotta go back to the Ward hit for 1 second, because this is the last. That was the last play he ever played against the Ravens. After years of taking cheap shots and busting up Ed Reed on crackback blocks and everything else he did, played the first game. Jared Johnson knocks him out cold.
He's hurt until this game.
Exactly. Comes back, first play, 3rd down, has a ball in his hand. Ray Lewis rings his bell, knocked out for the rest of the game. R.I.P. Hines Ward. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Wipes the smile off his face.
R.I.P. to Keith Rivers, Bengals linebacker.
God. But yeah, I mean, so there's your Hines Ward anecdote. Makes that catch, or doesn't make that catch, because Harbaugh challenges the completion. Turns out he was right.
Harbaugh goes 5 of 6 in challenges up to this point, which is crazy because he sucks at them now.
I was gonna say, I think I wrote that down. It does not feel historically correct that he was 5 of 6 on challenges, because it felt like he was a little bit better this past year, but the years before that, he couldn't figure it out. And I mean, I think it's part of the rule book turning into this complete swamp of litigation and God knows what else, but he just has not been able to figure it out with the challenges since.
And God knows that Harbaugh's probably tried to read a lot of these rules late at night by himself, and his brain just starts oozing out of his ears.
He's just like sitting there. He's like in his little study that's got the low lights and like the green lamp thing, and he's got his like glasses halfway down his nose, and he's just trying to like read them up, and he's just, completely lost. Poor guy. He got this one right. It was a 4th and 9. Forced a field goal by Sean Sweezum, who
classic Steelers kicker.
Yeah.
Just like him, Jeff Reed, Boswell, all these like above average kickers that'll like miss 11 one year and then have a Pro Bowl year the next. I love
stadium too, there, right? Because the wind coming off the river and all that.
They had that weird anecdote that we'll get to, obviously, about how there had only been in 10 years of that stadium 3 50-yarders at that point. And I was like, let me tell you a little bit about this guy, Justin Tucker. He's not really going to care too much about that, but we'll get to that at some point. So 3-3. 13:50 left in the second quarter. You guys remember David Reed?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Virginia, baby.
Brings this a kick return, and this basically encompasses David Reed. He has a good return up to the 40-yard line, fumbles it promptly, and then Vontae Leach thankfully recovers. So they've got
this ends up being an awful game from Vontae Leach. I'm not gonna lie. He missed like 7 blocks in this game. Palomalu clowned him on just like a little Vontae Leach, I didn't remember. The Ravens would split him out wide like every other snap, and it's just like, okay, don't even cover him. He's motioning into the backfield, and they're going to run a halfback blast. And Palomalu danced around him like a matador on one of these plays and came in and hit Ray Rice.
It was just pure Cam Cameron, like galaxy brain shit. It's very, very frustrating. But
we're going to send Leach out there.
Do what?
They threw Leach a lot of swing passes. I still think he was the best. I recently did the all-time 53, and I had Leach. And the Ravens have had like 6 or 8 like really high quality fullbacks. But in my opinion, Leach was the best.
In the last 20 years,
I think he was. He was there for a couple years. So I think if Ricard keeps on this track, he'll get there. But definitely,
Juszczyk, Alan Ricard,
Sam
back
Gash.
in the day. Sam Gash was a monster.
Sam Gash,
Obi Mahaley. And who was the other one? Le'Ron McLean. Right. So it's a bunch of them. But Leach, I like.
That's literally like 8 of the top 30 top 30 fullbacks in the last 20 years too.
I mean, if there's anything you want to be known for in 2020, it's the great fullback franchise. So
yes,
good stuff there.
Project Pat, let's go.
But yeah, for sure. So you get 2 plays basically that go nowhere. Flacco stands in the pocket on a 3rd and 10 on this drive. Whips a pass to Laquan Williams, preseason hero Laquan Williams.
Preseason hero. He catches a pass in the beginning of this game. Flacco was so good at throwing the ball when he was confident. The classic phrase, only where the receiver can get it, and borderline sails one to Williams. His spirals at this point are like pneumatically perfect. Like it's the prettiest spiral I've ever seen in my life is Joe Flacco during these couple of years.
Flacco was insane on third down in this game.
Scary.
The Ravens converted 67% on third down against, as we said, the number one pass defense in the league. And all of them were like 3rd and 6, and he'd get 7. 3rd and 7, he'd get 8. Game play after play after play after play.
3rd and 4 on this drive, Pitta for like 5 yards.
Right.
So that happened like 3 times.
Yeah, so they get into Steeler territory. It's a weird, like Ray Rice heavy sequence here that gets the offense stopped, brings out Cundiff to kick a 43-yarder, and he actually nails that one. So good for you, Billy Cundiff.
He kicked what, 3 field goals in this game?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, he had a fine game.
Yeah, so it's 6-3 at this point, correct? So kicking it back to the Steelers, and they introduced the Ravens defense. Or I guess they already introduced them, but they were doing some sort of graphic on them, and they mentioned, I wanted to bring this up. They mentioned Ed and Ray and Haloti and Suggs as the core 4, as it were. Ed and Ray, definite Hall of Famers. They were right about that. Al says Suggs probably in 2011.
This is during his defensive MVP year, correct?
Yeah.
And at this point, up to this game, he had 6 sacks. Going into this game, he had 9 tackle for loss, I believe 11 quarterback hits, 3 pass deflections, and 2 forced fumbles. So he's on a freaking tear. And he had a 3-sack game in week 1 against Pittsburgh, 3 quarterback hits, tackle for loss.
Makes a nice little play later in this game that we'll get to as well. So Suggs, Hall of Famer in your guys' eyes? I think so. I don't know about first ballot, but
I think he's first ballot. He's top 10 in sacks.
And he had the DMVP, and he has a Super Bowl. He has all the qualifications.
And I think the best run defender and the best run defender of this generation at his position. So he's a two-way player.
Okay.
Right.
I just feel like the first ballot thing can be tough for pass rushers sometimes, but definitely I'd love to see it happen for sure. But I think
he has like the personality part too.
Yeah, right.
Also hard, right? That's what he said in the intros.
Media friendly guy. Hacksaw, also hard University. So halfway through the second, you got a vintage Big Ben play. Huge gain, on 3rd and 6 to Antonio Brown. Get ready for this for the next decade. And this is where Chris remarks that this Antonio Brown has come out of nowhere lately.
Yeah, I think he had 36 receptions leading into this game, second to Mike Wallace. So we didn't even address this, and I need to put a disclaimer out. The Steelers were missing James Ferrier, Lawrence Timmons,
Woodley.
They had Timmons, Woodley, Lamar Woodley. They were missing. They were missing Emmanuel Sanders from their receiving core of Heath Miller, Hines Ward, Mike Wallace, Antonio Brown, and Emmanuel Sanders. They also had, I believe, a missing offensive lineman. The Ravens' only injury report was Ben Grubbs, who was active.
Grubbs had a tough game too. But yeah, Grubbs had missed a couple games, I think, heading into that game.
And the Ravens whooped the Steelers' ass week 1, healthy on healthy. Everything was go there, but the Steelers were definitely really beat up for this game.
For sure. So this is the drive that I saw you remarking about on Twitter, Spencer. You've got the defensive formation by Pagano where he completely just overloads the left side with, I think it was Suggs, Johnson, and I might have been Ray. I don't know who else.
I might have mistaken Johnson for Kruger or Kruger for Johnson. What other? I think it was actually Kruger.
Yeah, okay. So the Steelers call a timeout. Ravens run the same formation. They call a timeout. So 2 timeouts in a row. Very weird. Both teams come back to that.
This game was insane.
It was sick. Yeah. And then Kerry Williams has a nice pass breakup to stop them. So for all of that, nice little PBU there by Kerry. And, you go right back to the Ravens. You get 2-0 plays out of them and a 3rd and long. And, just quick anecdote by Al, calling Paul Amalu of Head and Shoulders fame, which I loved. And Flacco just kind of throws away one to bring up 4th down. So 2 very weird sequences there by both teams.
Absolutely.
A quiet game, I thought. Palomalo. But who had a big game was Debo Harrison. He was in the backfield all day. He was working the offensive tackles.
3 sacks. And he just had the best second effort in pass rushes of anyone ever. Like he would bull a little bit. Yeah, and they ended up breaking out the literal protractor for a graphic at one point, and they're like, James Harrison was at a 42-degree angle. Like, and he probably was, but it was just so goofy looking. But he really was just such an intense competitor. It was unreal. He like hurdled Ray Rice almost at one point, ends up hitting Flacco.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Wish you would have kept him around off the practice squad, right?
Yeah, you could have think they, might have been able to use a guy like that, especially across from Terrell Suggs.
You kind of think I went to McDaniel College training camp. My brothers would always take me when I was young. It was 15 minutes from my mom's house, and that man was about 230. I swear to God, was not. Ray Lewis was bigger than him. He was not a big guy. Got bullied all around. I was watching him because I'd heard about this guy. Had a lot of blah blah blah. Really good pass rusher. Got beaten. Comes back. Ends up on the Steelers. He is 30 pounds heavier, and we've all seen the videos. That dude can like push literally a ton, 2,000 pounds of weight on a rack.
I haven't seen these videos. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, fuck off. But
I don't watch workout videos, but I've seen those.
Yeah.
No,
that's my way.
Because like whenever he posts literally anything, like ESPN and all these like Bleacher Report accounts just put it literally everywhere, and I have to see it. Doesn't really trigger me as much anymore, but back when he was still playing for them, even a couple of years ago, it's like
he was the Ravens wrecker. He must have sacked Joe Flacco 25 times.
Yeah, they got to know each other pretty well back there in the old backfield. But yeah, so nearing the end of the second quarter, show a clip of Ray's pregame speech. I don't know if you guys picked up on that, but I really enjoyed it. People have their fun with Ray these days, but watching some of these old games, you can tell why guys were really drawn to him. Just a very fun guy to have on your team. But
it's always the younger guys too. Always the younger guys ate that shit up.
Oh yeah, it's just he's a natural born leader, a self-proclaimed natural born leader, which you love to see. And so Steelers, they're driving now, getting near the end of the second quarter, and they're into the red zone. Jamil Maclean nearly picks a pass, but he tips it up in the air, and Jericho Cotchery, one of the better names in the NFL the past decade, catches it, and Pittsburgh now has the ball inside the Ravens 10. They do not find the end zone. They have a couple of like passing plays that don't really work out, and then it's a sack, who we mentioned the young Paul Kruger and Pernell McPhee meeting at Roethlisberger to bring him down, and that brings out Sweezum for the field goal. So we're 6-6 heading into the final minute of the half. Any comments?
They just converged on him. What I don't know what the guard was trying to do with McPhee there, but
Kruger was just textbook. Kruger was textbook. Got a good jump. Used a 3 combo move. He used his inside hand to swipe, used his outside arm to club, and then came back and ripped through with his inside hand. And he did that in one step, like 1 foot step. It was crazy fast hands. Kruger was a freak, man. And then they end up with the Super Bowl team. Him, Upshaw, and McPhee were obviously Jared Johnson leaves, but those 3 were just thick, could stop the run. They were mobile enough to play the flat, and intense competitors as pass rushers. The Ravens, and Kyle kind of touched on it, saying recently that Elvis Dumervil was the best speed rusher the Ravens had. They never really have had speed rusher. Oh, yeah. Boulware was a speed rusher too. That's true. But in the last couple decades, pretty much, never speed rushers, always the thick boys that run through you. And they had 3 of them at once. And obviously Terrell Suggs leading the pack there. So those guys were just like, that is Ozzie Newsome's prototype as a pass rusher. And Suggs is really the only prolific one ever. But when they beat you, they freaking beat you as an offensive lineman. They ran through you. So that was always, that physical style. They were run stuffers first, then pass rushers probably. So those guys, I always just had a little extra, you always loved the Jared Johnson and those kind of guys.
Those dudes like all came on at the exact same time that next year in 2012, and basically like fueled them to that Super Bowl run. Kruger was unfreaking believable. I'm sure we'll cover at least a game or 2 from that run, so we'll touch on him. But yeah, so 6-6, a minute left in the half. Nice return by David Reed. Actually gives the Ravens a nice opportunity to drive for a field goal. So this is a fun little sequence. So Flacco sacked by Harrison, you mentioned, to start it off. Then he uncorks a pass to Ed Dixon. Dixon doesn't catch it, but he draws the personal foul on Ryan Clark with that helmet-to-helmet contact. So
Ryan Clark was a brick shithouse in this game.
Yeah.
He was the year they knocked out McGahee. No, the year before he knocked McGahee out, knocked him out.
Yes, like night.
So they were keeping an eye on him this game.
He was a hitter, yeah, and they got him there. So they're near midfield. The seconds are ticking down. They pick it. They quickly pick up a first to Bouldin. Bouldin then picks up another first down to the 31-yard line, but it goes under review. It's a bizarre play. He catches it, bobbles it up in the air, and he's like bobbling it around like circus. And then he goes down. You can kind of clearly see the ball just chilling on the ground there a little bit. So it gets called back, and now the Ravens are at exactly the same spot with 11 seconds and a timeout, not quite across midfield. Promptly, they false start. So they're now facing 5 more yards for field goal range.
My boy Ben Grubbs.
Yeah, exactly. But then it kind of all doesn't matter because you get a nice gainer to Ray Rice running out of the backfield, gets him up to the 33-yard line. And, hard as nails, Billy Cundiff comes out for a 51-yard attempt, and he drains it. 9-6 Ravens heading into the half. So very big, weird sequence there that probably wound up being pretty crucial in the game and admirably handled by Flacco and the Ravens offense. What are your guys' thoughts on the first half?
Ravens are moving the ball consistently, but they'll stall out. The Steelers are just like 1 yard, -2, 23 yards, like chunk, back, chunk, back. And so it was like the Ravens were consistently winning, but it just to me was so classic Roethlisberger, so big play reliant, but also so consistently producing big plays with these long throws. Have we gotten to where Antonio Brown digs the ball out between Ed Reed and Ladarius Webb yet, or is that in the second half? It was third and 17. Third quarter, okay. But yeah, a lot of big plays, and it was just at this point you don't know what the hell is going on. They're beating the snot out of each other, and you're just like, give me more of this. Yes.
Oh yeah, it was a smash mouth, heavy hitting game. You could kind of feel that Pittsburgh's offense was starting to get into a little bit of rhythm in that second quarter, and also Ray Rice. I think also just how shifty he was back then. Just those little jump cuts and everything he could do. This was kind of the peak, I think, of Rice. And even 2012, he started tapering off a little bit. And then 13, 14 obviously weren't great. But
16 total touchdowns this year from Ray Rice, I believe, in 2011.
Yeah, he was a monster.
Pretty solid. So Steelers get the ball to start the second half. And I think there are 2 plays go backwards, basically. But I think this is the one you're talking about where AB just spins a couple guys out of their shoes and completes, I think, a 3rd and 17. Is that right, or is that later on?
There was a 3rd and 17. I don't recall. I don't know if it was. I think it was the first drive of the second half, actually. And he runs. He gives a little hezzy on a corner route, and it ends up being a corner post. And he just drops to the ground and makes an absolute snag between Ladarius Webb and Ed Reed. And as Voss said, I mean, Ladarius Webb is a good cover corner at this point, one of the better ones in the NFL. And right in front of Ed Reed. And at this point, you're like, this is when you're saying to yourself, who the hell is Antonio Brown? Like, how do they have so many good receivers? What is happening? And they were just able to get out of a 3rd and 17. And that kind of stuff did not happen to the Ravens in these years. Right. But as I believe Collinsworth mentions, they start playing a lot of quarters defense, a lot of really soft 4 high. And Roethlisberger just buys time. The Ravens didn't have fast pass rushers, as I mentioned, but Roethlisberger was just around as fast as most of them, and so he could buy himself some time and was just so comfortable in the pocket. It was really just so frustrating to watch as a Ravens fan, how long these plays go on and how long people have to cover. He just so naturally navigated the pocket. This is when he was still pretty mobile and nimble and all that crap. So, I mean, he was whipping in this game.
Definitely. And then he whips another long one to Wallace. So they're really going now. And it looks like, 9-6 Ravens. It feels like they're probably going to have a touchdown here. But out of nowhere, our boy, T-Sizzle, picks off Big Ben in the flat. No idea how he managed it, really. He must have seen that thing on film 100 times because he was all over it. Huge play with about 10 minutes to go in the third. And as he's walking off the field, Al mentions his career as a budding filmmaker, which is sick. He had the production company, still going to this day, it looks like, Team Sizzle Worldwide. Great name. And it sounds like it's, doing pretty well for him. He had 3 short films that year, by the looks of it, one of which got into Cannes. So pretty solid.
Definitely didn't find his way into Cannes.
Yeah.
Steve Smith wrote an article on NFL Net, I think last week, about his favorite teammates. And he mentioned Suggs, and he started talking about Suggs' film career for half the clip there. But that was a play of the game. Suggs, I guess it was a bubble screen to Wallace. And I think he did it to Ben 3 times, 4
He
times.
did it in the playoffs a couple years later.
He had the famous
after.
between the legs catch.
But he had another one where it was a screen pass during the regular season. He jumped up and got it. he's so instinctual and films and tape study. That's the other thing that Steve Smith Sr. mentioned, that Suggs would have this persona that he would want the media to think he was a clown or a goofball or whatever, but really he was very, very serious about his craft. So defensive play of the game for sure.
Him and Steve Smith were just absolutely destined to be teammates. I remember when Smith first got there in OTAs, there were stories about them like already like wrestling with each other and just absolute guys being dudes. Would have loved
their lockers are next to each other, which I didn't know until I read this. But yeah, definitely two dogs for sure.
So my favorite part of that play is for 5 minutes before this, as I had mentioned earlier, Collinsworth is talking about Max Starks, the left tackle of the Steelers, how he had to lose weight, and basically saying how he's shutting Terrell Suggs down, and nonstop every play they're going back and looking at Starks and Suggs, and there's like a montage at one point. And so this is when I'm getting annoyed, and I'm like, all right, Collinsworth, like I'm gonna kill you. And so then, of course, the Ravens have been playing Suggs at the right defensive end position over the left tackle the entire, or I guess right outside linebacker, whatever you want to call it, over the left tackle the whole game. Switch him over to the other side 2 plays later. And as Collinsworth did break down really well, Roethlisberger went to the line, looked left, went to the line, looked left, never looked right, turned, snapped, didn't even look, and just launched the ball to Suggs. And like you said, Jake, I mean, he knew that was coming. Suggs was the best outside linebacker against screens on his side in NFL history. I'm confident in saying that.
You guys remember when George Costanza jumped over the puddle and he was concerned about how he looked effeminate? That's kind of what it reminded me of. Like when he did a little trape skip move to like jump up and grab it. It was a lot of fun to watch. So love Suggs, great play.
What episode is that in of Seinfeld?
It's I don't know. I think might be one where George is concerned about like people thinking he's like effeminate. I don't know if it would play.
Yeah. That was the whole episode. Yep.
Days, but yeah, it was pretty funny. So, and he also does like the thing where he like throws his hands up and he's like he didn't even know why he did it, but Suggs couldn't do that because he was too busy intercepting the ball. But moving on. So the drive continues. Or hang on, let me check my notes here. So the Ravens, they're driving into Steelers territory. Flacco, he pulls a Flacco and just kind of hawks one up to Bouldin in the end zone. Draws a PI on Ike Taylor. Ball is placed on the 4-yard line. I think they started this drive. Where was the Suggs pick? Like right before midfield. So must have been a pretty.
No, it was deep. He was deep. They were in the red zone.
They probably had the ball around the 25. The Steelers or their own 25 after he got tackled.
Pitta had 2 third down conversions.
Little squeakers.
Rice had a third down conversion. LeBeau was sending overload blitzes at Flacco. Just no respect for Flacco at this point. Just blitzing, and Joe just keeps making throws on third down.
Yeah, definitely. I probably forgot to include some of those in my notes, but basically they get down to the red zone, and like I mentioned, they get that PI call, and Ray Rice just bangs it in, from the 4-yard line. Awesome block by Vontae Leach. 4 minutes 27 to go in the third. Ravens are up 16-6. The bullshit chants are in full effect after that PI call, which you love to see.
Love it because I felt for so long, so many calls went against Ravens, especially in that rivalry, and especially no calls on blatant, horrible holds. That was my biggest pet peeve of this rivalry around that time, was the Steelers' offensive line bear hugging people and not getting off of it. I was younger, and as Jake said, testosterone fueled at that point.
It has nothing to do with age. I was older than
even in this game,
and then the Ravens would run a punt back for a touchdown, and they would call a hold because somebody went like this, inside.
It already happened in the first play of this game.
Even in this game, it felt like there were
no. Pittsburgh's a public team, and they always get the calls, and the Ravens just had to battle them and the refs until they beat that ass bad enough that they could start getting some calls.
Yes,
love to see it. So here's where that 3rd and 17 was that I was mentioning. I think I got a little bit mixed up. So it's their next drive. The Steelers are down 16-6 at this point. You got a third and 17, and I think this is where you were talking about with Brown with that circus catch near midfield, and that really gets them rolling with about a half left in the third, or a minute and a half left in the third. So really need something, and they start to get it. Heath Miller catches a first down, shakes a couple tackles, just rumbles to the 26-yard line of the Ravens. Sick blown coverage by Bernard Pollard. Thank you for that. And then Heath picks up another first right after that. Quick run by Mendenhall has them to the 10-yard line as we head into the fourth quarter. So Ravens up 16-6, heading into the fourth quarter. Steelers now threatening. And interesting bit of the game here because Ike Taylor mentioned, I remember, I think it was when Jameis was coming up. He said he reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger because his athleticism, it's almost like he's an old Volvo, where he's just like, it's this old kind of clunker, but he's still getting it done and he can get you where you need to go. So Ben kind of scrambles almost for a touchdown, stopped just on the goal line.
How many times the Ravens, I feel like, and maybe it's just because that is the team I'm centric on, how many of these goal line over the years, so many goal line, knees down, fumble, touchdown, even on like that, both sides of the ball, them having the ball and the other team, so many of these little diving goal line fumble, was it a touchdown plays? We saw it in back-to-back weeks, 2018 into 2019, Cleveland Browns, Lamar jumps over the one, drops the ball, trying to pull it back. Jabril Peppers should have had a 100-yard touchdown, doesn't get it. Stupid. They should have had a touchdown. Then the next week, Marlon Humphrey on the against the Chargers takes one back the other way. I feel like the Ravens are involved in a ton of them.
Yeah, they certainly are.
AFC North football definitely plays a part.
Exactly. Just, bunch of guys out there giving each other, black eyes and whatnot. So we have first and goal, foot to go. Mendenhall stuffs it in 16-13 as the fourth quarter is opening. Next drive, Ravens get it. Flacco sacked to open the drive. James Harrison, absolute beast, as we mentioned. But you got a little bit of I think it was a second or third and long, and Joe hits Torrey to pick up a first and get the Ravens some breathing room. And following that, you've got a collision with Vontae Leach and Ryan Clark, I think that you guys have been talking about. That was absolutely bone-shattering. Sets up a 2nd and 5. Ricky Williams converts that. So the Ravens are really starting to drive here with 11 minutes to go. They convert another third down to Bouldin, now in Steeler territory. So now it's third down. They're really driving. They're looking to put this game away. And who else? James Harrison sacks Flacco. He fumbles the ball away on that third down. William Gay recovers it. Steelers take over on their own 40, down 16-13 with 7 minutes and 40 seconds left to go in the game.
How many quarterback hits do you guys think James Harrison had in this game?
Probably
8.
Yeah.
Hit 7.
Yeah.
7 quarterback hits in a game.
Flacco, too. This is partially on Flacco. His pocket presence, it got a little bit better when he got older. And he had a great game throwing the ball. But those early years, you just wish he could have felt that pressure coming sometimes. And he just quite a few fumbles, especially against Pittsburgh, at crucial moments.
Definitely. So, like I mentioned, Steelers about to go on a drive here. They immediately hit Antonio Brown for a first down. They have another completion to Kotchery off of a tipped pass. And it's just one of those bad luck plays for the Ravens going in the Steelers' favor. I feel like that happens a good amount of time. We've already sort of touched on that. And then you get another nice gainer, this time to AB. And Spencer, I'm sure you want to touch on this one because it's the one by Jamil Maclean that you were talking about on Twitter earlier.
Jamil Maclean comes up, and Jamil Maclean was a meaty linebacker. He was a big, thick, square-built guy. Yes, chunk boy. Ran a 4.7 340, but Lord could he hit, and he was just smart enough to be able to move in the little zones and the little hooks, and a lot of zone from the linebackers in the Ravens this game. Obviously, Ray is not a burner at this point in his career. He used to be pretty fast, but he is not. And so a lot of those little hook zones, same thing as what Ray did to Hines Ward, same area of the field. Jamil Maclean comes up straight for, hits right through him, and then gives this double fist pump that was so sick afterwards, like a truck chug, like hump thing. And he cracked Antonio Brown, which gives me a little bit of solace looking back, knowing that happened, and then thinking about Antonio Brown on Christmas Day, destroying my hopes, dreams, and the birth of Jesus Christ.
Was Jesus a Steelers fan?
Probably with the way the fucking calls go.
Even got God against us, but yeah. So same drive, third down. Ben rolls out doing Ben shit. Throws for Antonio Brown, who's open in the end zone, but it is actually caught by someone else. Ravens legend Mike Wallace hauls in the touchdown. So 14 unanswered points. It's Steelers 20, Ravens 16, 4 minutes 59 left in the game. What is your guys' perspective watching this?
Just beyond the fingertips of Kerry. He was right there, and he couldn't quite touch it.
Sprawled out for it.
Kerry Williams underrated. Ben, I don't like Ben, obviously, but you have to respect him, especially there, man. He was He was a baller, and he would stand in there and take hits and scramble around. And people
Break out of tackles.
They were like, I hate Ben. I hate Ben. I respected Ben. I hated Hines Ward. I respected Ben.
I hate and respect Ben. Like, he is not a guy that I would want to be friends with, but it's like, yeah, this guy is just an absolute beast. What are you going to do? I mean, really, really awesome quarterback for a very long time. Hopefully not anymore. We're going to see this year. But yeah, I mean, so 4:59 left in the game. Watching this game, I definitely recall being like, okay, here we go. Like, it's pretty much over. And that was not quelled by the quick 3-and-out that the Ravens suddenly have. And after a long game of leading them, it's looking pretty bleak. They punt back to them, and the Steelers get the ball 1st and 10 from their own 45. So a 3rd and 9 comes up. Ben forces Corey Redding to jump. He absolutely smokes the center, and he gets called
Pouncey.
for. Oh, was it Pouncey?
Mm-hmm. Young
Damn, he's
Pouncey.
been there forever.
Mm-hmm.
So,
he was teammates with Tebow.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and Hernandez.
And Hernandez, yeah. And Riley Cooper.
And Chris Leak.
God, I love Urban Meyer. But so he smokes the center. He smokes Pouncey. He gets called for encroachment. 3rd and 4, complete to Kotchery into Ravens territory. So it looks like this one is pretty much over. But the Steelers really botched this. So they have a backwards run. You got a 2nd and 13.
Nada finally showed up. Nada hadn't made a play all game, and he finally showed up on this drive.
Yeah, so he blows that up. Ravens use their first time out. You get a quick dump off. I think it was a running back on that one. Brings up a 3rd down and 5. Ravens use their second timeout. And I kind of don't really know what they were going for in this one. It looked like a swing pass to the left. Ben throws incomplete. 2 minutes, 34 seconds to go. Steelers bring out the field goal unit for a 47-yarder. And they have a delay of game where I don't know what the broadcast was thinking, but they were like, yeah, just a malfunctioning play clock. Who knows what's going on here? And then it turns out that I think it was Walt Anderson, who was the ref. He called them for the delay of game. And then it's, it's not a malfunctioning play clock. It's a malfunctioning offense there, Al.
Tomlin wasn't pissed, though. So I question whether it was intentional or not to take that delay of game. Because they kept saying they were on the windy side of the field, whatever.
It's also it's a 47-yarder, like you mentioned. Sweezum is kind of a journeyman, so maybe you don't want to risk it. So that could have been very much the case that they intentionally took that. But it was kind of weird that they sent them out there and everything. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe I just don't know what's going on. Who could say?
They just didn't respect Flacco. That's what it was.
Yeah.
This is the game that Flacco they
earned.
Yeah. And I think Flacco had beat them in Pittsburgh the year before, but for some reason they still didn't respect him. After this game, they respect him.
You mentioned Woodley. He was the one who said that the Ravens would never win a Super Bowl in this lifetime with Flacco as their quarterback.
Fun fact, I said that Joe Flacco's rookie year after the game in Pittsburgh that he lost in the playoffs.
You care to elaborate?
I said I was watching with my friend Clay, who sometimes gets in the comments and is active with us on Twitter, and I watched with him. And I was like, yeah, Clay with a K. I was like, Joe Flacco is not going to win a Super Bowl. He is a fucking joke. Because that was when he was like Mr. Awkward with the ball in his hands, throwing picks, fumbling the ball. And I was like, I hated him because I just thought he was another bowler. He had 14 touchdowns in a full season. And I was like, this is just I was like, this is just another floundering, crappy quarterback that the Ravens pick up. And what do you know? They have
the guy. I know what you're saying, and he was, as much as I loved him, he did not do a whole lot to help himself as far as being able to defend, because he's this big goofy white guy with a stupid name and
the most buzz cut. That
how about the brows, dude?
Oh, yeah,
he used to look like Bert.
He did. People make that joke, and it's I can't say anything. He's not that good for one. He started to get better, but and then he just looked like a complete clown, and he just wouldn't get it together. And then he kind of started to lean into it a little bit with the Fu Manchu, which I appreciated. And I think that was this year.
The mannequin challenge and all that stuff.
Yes.
But I remember I never knew this until it was after Ed Reed's Hall of Fame induction. Ed Reed and Ray Lewis are having a little sit down one-on-one. They said it was an interview, but it was just it was a fireside chat kind of more so. And they were like, we had Chris Redman, we had Gerbach, we had Banks, they named all the quarterbacks. And they were like, we got McNair. We thought we had something, yada, yada, yada. McNair couldn't get it done. They said every single time there was a new quarterback in the first live ones versus ones, they would run the same blitz, same creeper blitz every time. And Ed Reed said he intercepted 4 out of 5 times they ran it for the first time. It was like a little like trial by fire on the first, like whatever situation they could run it. He said he picked off Gerback, he picked off Banks, he picked off everyone but McNair. And he said that Flacco saw it, made an adjustment before the snap, and then snapped the ball, took 2 steps to his right and threw the ball out of bounds. And they were like, he knew it was coming. And they said they looked at each other and they're like, we might have something with this guy. And it's just crazy that, like, obviously that might be a little bit of a fable or a tall tale, but it's crazy if that is true to any extent. That
so they say that, and then you've got the America's Game documentary from 2012. They like touch on it a little bit. Shout out to Ed Norton, was the narrator. And they touch on like the 2008 thing with Ray a little bit, who was interviewed for that. And I guess the interviewers asked him, like, were you concerned like starting over with a new coach and a new quarterback again? And he was like, I think I thought that for about 5 minutes until I saw Joe Flacco throw a football. And he did one of his little hyperbolic things about, oh boy, this boy can spin it. It's pretty great. Go watch that.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, Joe Flacco, this is pretty much his moment. So you have Kapanos, who was their punter in that game. Really good punt. Downs it at the Ravens 8-yard line. So they're backed up 2 minutes, 24 seconds left in the game. Pretty much have to drive the length of the field. They're down 20-16, so they need a touchdown. We're about to learn a lot about Joe Flacco here. Do you guys remember? Well, I guess you don't, Spencer, but Voss, do you remember where your head was at this point?
I still feel pretty confident because, I mean, the Ravens, they were down the scoreboard, but they were kind of controlling the game. You know, I felt pretty good about it. I don't know. For some reason, they were just always right there on the cusp, and I felt like they were right about to break through against Pittsburgh. And yeah.
There you go. Just absolute nut cutting time. So from the 8, Flacco's first completion goes to Bouldin to up around the Ravens 30. So heading into the 2-minute warning, really awesome play to start things off. Gives them some really good breathing room and a good omen for the rest of the drive. So it continues. This time you've got a climb the ladder throw left side to, we mentioned Laquan Williams earlier. Picks up another first down, this time at the Ravens 42-yard line. Clock is actually rolling after that one. And then you have an incompletion to Ray Rice, kind of dangerously tipped in Troy's direction a little bit there. But you mentioned he was looking a little slow in the game, didn't really close to the ball.
Oh no, he closed on that ball.
He wasn't like close enough.
He was playing deep half and closed to the flat and almost picked it off on a quick throw.
Yeah. I never really freaked out. I mean, maybe this is a revisionist history, but I don't know if he was like close enough where he could have realistically grabbed it. It was definitely an athletic play to get as close as he did, but I don't know. We don't have to relitigate that.
Well, Bouldin just took over. On this drive, Bouldin took over.
Yeah. So the next play, Flacco goes back to Bouldin again. 9-yard gain, brings up a 3rd and 1 at midfield. Next pass, 3rd and 1, intended for Torrey, knocked down by Littlefoot. So 4th and 1.
That was almost a pick, and it was Bouldin ran a flat from the right slot, and I want to say either Reed or Williams ran a slant. So it was a slant flat combo, which is a very basic route concept, and Flacco just completely misread this one and throws it.
Any receiver, like he threw it behind Torrey, and just like clanked off of Foot's left arm.
Yeah.
So 4th and 1 at the 50-yard line, 61 seconds to go. Flacco hits Bouldin in the middle of the field again. Absolute clutch play here. I saw you were tweeting about this one.
Instantly gets the ball out. Instantly snaps the ball. Doesn't give any time for there to be a pass rush.
Inside position, puts it up high.
And I don't know how the fuck you're not having inside outside on Bouldin with a linebacker and a corner. I have no clue how you're letting Anquan Bouldin, the only viable veteran receiver on the team,
right? Or bring Ike Taylor into the slot to cover him.
Yes.
Because Ike Taylor was a good corner back then.
He was a $50 million corner.
He didn't have any ball skills, but he could cover for sure.
Physical, yeah.
But yeah, so that was an incredible throw. Flacco, it was, and again, we talked about earlier on that decisiveness, the confidence, and just like knowing where to go so much more consistently. And none of those whenever the play mattered, that's why he was so good on 3rd down. The story of this game was whenever it was nut cutting time down wise, when it was 3rd down and then earlier in the game, and then 4th down on this drive, He got the ball out, knew where he was going. There was not going to be some, messed up thing that happened. He was going to give his guy a chance quickly, make sure the pass rush didn't get there. As Vaz mentioned, they didn't have a great offensive line. Harrison already has 3 sacks in this game. So he just lasers a beautiful throw to Bouldin on a little like skinny post or a dig or something, and gets it in there. So that was like a hell yeah confidence. Like they can do this damn thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's just an absolutely amazing play that obviously it's sort of gets shown up by one later on the drive here, so people don't talk about it, but it feels like maybe even a franchise definer a little bit for the relationship between Flacco and Bouldin. But another
Bouldin's coming off that big game against the Cardinals, his former team, the previous week, and that was a game where he put the entire team on his back.
Yep.
Some people said Bouldin wasn't consistent. He was one of the best receivers the Ravens ever had.
Probably it's either him or Derek Mason, probably, and that's it.
And Torrey's up there too, but those are the big 3 for sure. No question about it.
If Smith had played here, Steve Smith had played here longer, he would have been, but yeah, definitely. And so after that, critical play here, you get a short completion to Dixon. So it's 2nd and 8 with about 40 seconds to play. They're at the 37-yard line. So Flacco takes the snap here, moves around a little bit. Got some pressure, but he's got just enough of a clean pocket. Chucks one up to Torrey, left side, who's just open in the end zone, completely got behind Ike Taylor. Pass just completely clanks off of his hands. So brutal drop by him.
Beautiful pass.
Absolute dime. And this is what was and it's a microcosm of things that frustrated me with Joe Flacco. If he climbed the pocket, he would throw a beautiful pass, perfect accuracy every time when he climbed the pocket. And this was just a mirror image almost of the Mile High Miracle, the Flacco fling. Mm-hmm. Just he's like, I'm climbing and I'm bombing this thing one-on-one. Every time he stepped through the pocket, dead pinpoint machine-like accuracy. And that was a beautiful pass to Torrey Smith, who tries to clap the ball together like a freaking clown at a circus.
He's like Jason Garrett out there. But so you got a 3rd and 8. Who saves the day? Flacco. Yep. So just over 30 seconds on 3rd down. Bouldin, simple little out route. Flacco just pinpoints him. And
same thing as the previous one he caught. Lined up left slot, shakes, and then breaks out instead of in. Just exact same thing. Probably as a receiver option.
Just very smooth play, going to the sideline. 7th catch of the game for Bouldin. Steelers take a timeout here, I guess seemingly to regroup, because they just could not figure Anquan out on this drive.
And then we're going to have to double him. He's eating us alive.
Yeah, and so during his timeout, Chris mentions that, he mentions his drop in the end zone and that he was responsible for the hold on the first play of the game that wiped out Rice's touchdown. I think that was really good broadcasting because it does set up what happens later on. So great job there by Chris. So right after that, you got the disappointment by Torrey. You've got Bouldin picking up that 1st down. Flacco goes to David Reed, absolutely smothered by Ike Taylor. So I don't know what the play call was here.
I think it was a throwaway a little bit.
Yeah. So it's incomplete. Ravens have a 2nd and 10 from the 26 with 23 seconds to go. Speaking of Bouldin, Flacco throws over the middle to him. He drops one that would have picked up a 1st. So
worst play in his Ravens career.
Yeah, he dropped the ball.
He had a drop in the playoffs the year before.
Yeah.
In Pittsburgh?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't even remember that one.
Late in the 4th quarter.
I'm going to have to go rewatch that one.
Yeah, I think he and Hushmanzada had drops in that game.
I remember Hoosh. Okay. Yeah, I think I remember it.
Yeah, so 3rd and 10, and this is where Chris says Joe Flacco is doing a great job on this drive, and his receivers are completely letting him down. I thought it was a very astute comment. And, Chris maybe gets accused of being a little too player-friendly sometimes, but he kind of really went after the guys there, and I think appropriately.
It was bad. 2 drops in the past 3 catchable balls. One would have won the game, and the other one, in hindsight, it is easy to say, but it ended up being for the best that Anquan Bouldin dropped that ball. And I'm not just talking about the result of the play that won the game, but I'm talking about space and time wise.
Right.
The field
picked it up with it around the 11-yard line. They would have had to use a timeout, and you're basically really limiting what you can do at that point if he catches it.
And you're condensing the field down. And in my opinion, and on many others, you're better at like the 18, 20, 25 in those situations with a timeout than you are with 8 seconds left at or 11 seconds left at the 10, 11-yard line there. So it really ended up being for the best, but was a gut-wrenching drop to watch.
Absolutely. Yeah. Flacco just kept trucking it. You know, he was a never say die attitude in this entire drive.
There was 4 years of that, and it was 2010 through 2014.
And there was definite good and bad with that. Like sometimes he would just have a fuck it attitude, and like not in a good way. Like he would do the thing. He would just hawk it up and try to draw a PI or just like trust his guy a little bit too much. And that would
didn't bother me as much as the fumbles and not hawking it up.
And checkdowns. Fumbles, checkdowns. Those are the two things I don't like about him later in his career.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And but I think at the time he kind of just had an absolute gunslinger mentality, just like like I mentioned, positives and negatives, but it wound up being a positive here because ultimately 3rd and 10, 16 seconds left in the game, drops back, loads up, and just throws an absolute teardrop to Torrey Smith in the end zone. Makes the catch. He was interfered with Ike Taylor. He got behind Ike Taylor. You had, I think, Ryan Clark running over, not fast enough at all to get to them. Torrey makes the catch, and just an absolute scene. You've got Ed Reed like screaming on the sidelines, like celebrating. You could hear him.
Ed Reed was all of us.
He was, yeah, like 17 times you were Ed Reed when Torrey Smith catches the game-winning touchdown. BuzzFeed should write that article, but yeah, so. Just a total scene. Like Flacco and Torrey just get mobbed in the end zone by the offensive line. Just an awesome moment. One of my all-time favorites as a Ravens fan.
And I mean, it's just crazy. And it really was Ryan Clark's fault, not getting over, and how it was just rocking a hard place. And throughout this entire game, when Flacco was in the spread, the offense was humming. And whenever it was 3rd down, the offense was so great, and that like they just shot themselves in the foot running the ball, had really no big runs except for the first play of the game called back. And it was so precise, Flacco. And like you said, at that point, he has one veteran receiver on his entire active team. So he just didn't care anymore who he was throwing the ball to, relied on Q when it was crunch time. But then obviously the Steelers take that time out there. They're going to double Q. You play chess. Why did the Steelers take a timeout? They're taking a timeout because Anquan Bouldin took us all the way down the field. What are they going to do? Double Anquan Bouldin? The Steelers just couldn't double 2 players. Doesn't work that way. You end up letting up a free touchdown. And Torrey Smith was the benefactor of that. And good fucking Lord, man, you knew he was running a 9 route. He only ran 9 routes and some like a little underneath stuff. So if he's past 5 yards, he's not running a comeback. He's not running an out.
That's why he grabbed him. He's like, I'm not letting you get behind me, motherfucker. Come back.
Exactly.
Here.
And Torrey just has those long flailing arms and you can't quite grab him and just die. He was like, I am not going to drop this ball. I'm going to fall with it instead of trying to fight it. And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. It's good.
They threw PI on the play, right? It was touchdown and PI.
Yeah,
so it would have been.
That's why Ed Reed was like looking because he saw the flag,
right,
and then you see the official
like
pointing.
And then Walt is like, "It's pass interference, going to set him up down at the 5-yard line." And like, it's like, no, dude, like it's a touchdown. And then he corrects himself. He's like, "The rolling on the field is a touchdown. The play is a touchdown."
I watched the condensed version twice.
And Flacco gives the very classic Joe Flacco. Or I guess I have to go this arm.
The touchdown thing.
Yeah. This, to me, this was one of at least top 10, if not higher, top 5, maybe franchise-defining regular season games. This was the one that kind of got, I think, and we know the Ravens didn't win the Super Bowl this year, but they did win the division, 12 wins. This kind of gave them the momentum to go into the playoffs and go into New England that game they should have won, which led into their motivation for the next season, et cetera, et cetera. And it was Flacco's one of his signature regular season wins. Definitely. This is a game that I always remember where I was watching it, you know, and I was living in Canton at the time, watching it with some buddies. And this is one of those games I think we'll always look back on. The Ravens didn't steal it. They were +8 in time of possession, but they just kept swinging, kept chucking wood, like chopping wood, like Harbaugh says.
Yeah, exactly. It is. I don't think it's a stretch to say this is easily the best game-winning drive of Flacco's career. Like he had a lot, and some of them were kind of a joke, like the one against Detroit in 13 when he basically marches him like 15 yards and Tucker kicks like a 61-yard game winner. Like that's not really like a real game-winning drive, but it counts as one. This one was just 92 yards, just completely crisp, completion here, completion there, just kind of dinking and dunking like Joe Montana used to do back in the day. And guys were letting him down, and he just kept saying fuck it and just throwing it up to them and like having faith in them. And Torrey Smith said after the game, it really meant a lot to him that after he had that, really tough drop, that he went right back to him. And I think that said a lot about the chemistry that they were going to go on to have for the 4 or 5 years that they were there after the fact.
If the Ravens lost that game after that Torrey Smith drop on that drive, that could have been, receivers and corners psyches are very delicate. If they're not a complete borderline sociopath confidence wise, that could have been a detrimental blow to his career, dropping that pass. And who are we to say that there wouldn't have been a little bit of resentment towards him for dropping that pass from Flacco himself and from other teammates and from the coaching staff?
Think about how quickly it spiraled for Perryman just a few weeks into training camp.
And fans, I didn't even think about that. Fans could have that was like Voss said, that was Smith. No, Jesus, not Perryman. Smith's 4th drop of that game. And that can start a little hate storm towards a receiver. And we saw that exact thing with Brashad Perriman. It can sour everyone's opinion on a receiver. It can sour their own opinion of themselves confidence-wise. And it is so important. It's so cliche and overstated now, but how many times do you hear quarterbacks, cornerbacks, and wide receivers say you have to let it go and focus on the next play? You have to have a short-term memory, whatever they say. But that kind of stuff you have to be able to let go. And Torrey, I don't know if he's like that, but from that point forward, he had Joe Flacco's trust and was very close to, losing it maybe. And Flacco, as that little story that I heard where Jerry Sandusky with a G talked to Steve Smith for the first time once he came to Baltimore. And comes to Baltimore, and Steve Smith tells Jerry that Joe Flacco's, it's like, they texted or whatever, had a phone call, and then they finally see each other in person. Steve Smith says, hey, I'm excited to work with you, blah, blah. Joe Flacco says, that's great. Excited to have you. If you don't run the right route, I'm not throwing you the fucking ball. And Tom Brady, if he doesn't trust you, you're not going in the goddamn game. So all that stuff is very real, I feel like. And it was a huge moment for Torrey Smith, who, in terms of touchdowns, probably had the highest production of any Ravens receiver ever. I think 32 over his 4 years as a Raven, something like that. So it was huge for the team, huge getting them to that championship caliber, getting the Steelers monkey off their back kind of all the way. They swept them after a couple playoff losses to them. The Steelers end up going to the Super Bowl over the Ravens back in Flacco's rookie year and all that stuff. And since then, the Steelers had the Ravens number and have not had it since. They have never had a firm grip on the Ravens since that day. I think
the Ravens had their number, you could say.
They did for a while.
Harbaugh beat him with Ryan Mallett, beat him in the 14 playoffs on the road, Yeah.
And we
Baltimore
now have
Ravens
joining chat saying F12, F Pittsburgh. So very, very prescient commentation there. But yeah, nothing else to say with this game. Joe Flacco's balls dropped at the exact right time.
Boom.
Anything closing for you guys? Or
Terrell Suggs goes on to win Defensive Player of the Year. This obviously ends in the heartbreaking wide left. Maybe we'll do that game at some point. Maybe not. That
be a
game,
fun one. I feel like we should do that.
I don't think I've ever watched it in full since then. I think it would be really fun. But that would have been the even bigger game-winning drive for Flacco, because he did throw a dime to Lee Evans, who some people say had the ball pushed out of his hands. I say should have fallen the fuck down in the corner of the end zone and not even given the DB a chance. But Flacco is in his reign of terror of being a pretty damn clutch, confident, cool quarterback who didn't have the best supporting cast in the NFL ever. But at this point in his career, it really sets the tone that we can go be a damn good championship caliber team. That hump off their back was huge, and it resulted in a Super Bowl, quite frankly. And this was one of the precursors or baby steps towards that Super Bowl, was going into Pittsburgh, playing a tough game, driving down the field, 92 yards, winning the game, playing a clean game through and through, and said a lot about this team, where they were, said a lot about John Harbaugh at the time, and a lot about the decisions they had made, validated a lot of tough choices they had to make over the last couple of years, letting guys go, bringing new guys in. It was huge for this franchise, huge win.
And they knocked Hines Ward out of the game, both games.
Never saw him again.
Season. Sweet revenge.
Yep.
Just like Tom Brady throwing a pick six in his final pass as a New England Patriot.
Absolutely. Another one of Flacco's best comebacks too was at 2012, probably 9 months after this game against New England. That's got to be up there. The Torrey Smith with his brother.
Oh,
that game.
we're doing that game.
That's definitely do that game. That's the best game day environment I've ever been to as a Ravens fan.
Yes, because everyone was just there with Torrey.
Incredible. Yeah, we'll definitely be doing that one. But yeah, if you guys got nothing else, I'll go ahead and get us out of here.
Let's
cool.
do it.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate you guys joining me for this one. This was a really fun one. And I think we're probably going to try and do one a little more, soon than we had between the gap with the last one. I think it was a couple weeks. So if we could maybe get one out next week, that would probably be good. This is, not too hard to edit or anything. So yeah,
we'll probably try and check in one of these a week and one just updates on what's going on until we get news popping again.
Definitely. So yeah, appreciate you guys joining me. Appreciate everyone tuning into the stream, listening to the show. A lot of crazy stuff going on in the world right now. So, a lot of more important things than talking football, talking old games going on. But if this provides you guys with, any sort of reprieve from that, we're happy to do our part. I know it helps kind of keep me sane to keep doing this thing with literally just everything that's going on in the last 6 months. One of the more trying years of my life, I would probably say, which
of our generation, this is the most trying year of you and my generation, 20-somethings. I definitely,
bro. My grandmother's 93 years old. She's never had a year like this either.
Yeah,
it's the Spanish flu and the recession, the Great Depression, and all that stuff. But we are here. We got your back. If you need anything, if you need someone to talk to, hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up wherever. We got your back.
The boys are always here for you.
No doubt.
Yeah. So, and, appreciate you guys listening. You can follow the show on social media. If you're not already, you can find the Twitter account at Podcast Beatdown. I run that. You can find my personal account at Jake Luke. That's LOUQUE. Voss, where can the people find you?
At Vasilis Beatdown, VASILIS Beatdown.
Spencer Schultz, they can find at Ravens for Dummies. That's the number 4. Really appreciate you guys listening, and peace out. Stay safe. Call your parents.
See ya.